It's been 6 months since the divorce, and I'm slowly settling into a new rhythm with my son, starting to regain a sense of normalcy. Then, out of nowhere, I get a message from my ex-husband, the one I divorced. "How are you doing? I miss you both, the two of you that I love so much," he writes. The two of us whom he loves, I think, rolling my eyes. What a joke, as if any of this was my fault. This is the story of how I stood up to a man who turned out to be the lowest of the low, and fought my way to happiness with my son. My name is Abigail, and I'm 29 years old. A year ago, I married Daniel, and we were building a life together. We met at work, dated for 2.5 years, and then decided to tie the knot. Daniel's 3 years older than me, and his income was lower than mine, but I never minded. What I loved about him was his work ethic. He was dedicated, not just at work, but at home as well. We both worked, and we shared the chores. It probably helped that I made more money than him, but honestly, I was just happy to be married to someone so wonderful. I truly believed we had it all. But everything changed when I got pregnant. It started with something simple. I'd been feeling off, so I took a pregnancy test, and it was positive. "Danny, I think I'm pregnant," I said. "Seriously?" he responded, looking shocked. "Yeah," I said, a mix of excitement and nerves rushing through me. He smiled wide and hugged me. "I'm so happy about this," he said. With him by my side, I thought we could handle anything. At least, that's what I believed. A few days later, while we were having dinner, my husband made an unexpected suggestion. "Hey, Abby, what do you think about moving in with my parents?" he asked casually. "Wait, what? Move in with them? Why all of a sudden?" I asked, stunned. We'd never discussed anything like this before. We didn't see his parents often, and while I didn't have an issue with them, I certainly wasn't eager to live under the same roof. "Why would we need to move in with them now? I'm happy with the way things are," I said firmly. He hesitated. "Well, since you're pregnant, wouldn't it be better to have my parents around in case something happens?" I frowned. It made sense to a degree, but living together, that was a different story. I wasn't sold. "Don't worry," he said, "my mom is all for it. She was thrilled when she found out you were pregnant." He kept pushing, saying things like, "It'll be so comforting to have their support." When the conversation shifted to concerns about the baby, it was harder to argue, and so, against my better judgment, I agreed, and by the end of the month, we were living with his parents. "Welcome, Abigail, we'll be relying on you," my father-in-law greeted me as we arrived. "Take good care of yourself while you're pregnant, and have a healthy baby," my mother-in-law added warmly. That first day, my in-laws were kind, almost too kind. They seemed eager to make me feel comfortable, and maybe, just maybe, I was wrong about this whole living situation. But that feeling didn't last long. Within a week, I was starting to feel like I was being treated as a servant. "Abigail, what's this for breakfast?" my mother-in-law snapped one morning. "Huh, what's wrong?" I asked, confused. "In this house, breakfast is scrambled eggs and toast, always. Why did you make bananas and yogurt?" she demanded. "Well, when it's just Daniel and me, sometimes we have bananas and yogurt," I tried to explain. "I don't want to hear your excuses," she interrupted. "There are rules in this house. Now that you're part of the family, you need to follow them." The rules started clashing with everything I thought I knew, and of course, my husband and father-in-law didn't stand up for me. They actually sided with her. "You had bananas and yogurt?" my father-in-law asked, looking bewildered. "Well, Dad," Daniel said hesitantly, "I didn't really like it, but Abigail wanted it, so we went with it." Reluctantly, I shot back, "You were the one who liked it." But no one cared. My words went ignored. It didn't take long for the real Daniel to show his true colors. The one who'd been so considerate before became selfish, dismissive, and downright uncaring. Maybe I'd been too accommodating when we lived on our own, but now everything was falling apart. And my father-in-law made it worse. "It's disgraceful for a daughter-in-law to be so lazy with family matters," he said one day, as if it was a fact. "Yeah, I've had a hard time too," Daniel agreed. "I keep comparing Abigail to my mom." Their conversation was so heartless I couldn't help but overhear. That's when I knew, my marriage was over. I was growing more and more fed up with my husband. who always managed to twist situations so I looked like the villain in front of his parents. Living in that household was unbearable, so I clung to my job, determined to work until I absolutely had to stop. Even while working, all the household chores were dumped on me. No one cared that I was pregnant and juggling a full-time job. The only blessing was that I didn't suffer from severe morning sickness. I couldn't imagine how much worse their criticism would have been if I'd been bedridden. I tried my best to maintain the same routine as before, avoiding anything that could spark more complaints, but the real nightmare began when I started my maternity leave. With no work to escape to, I was stuck at home with my in-laws all day. Inevitably, tensions grew. One day, I decided to go for a walk to keep myself active and healthy. "Oh, where do you think you're going?" my mother-in-law called after me. "I'm going for a walk," I said calmly. "The doctor recommends light exercise during pregnancy. It's good for my health and for the baby." She laughed in a way that made my skin crawl. "A walk? Don't kid yourself. You've gained so much weight already. It won't make any difference now," she sneered. Her words stung, but I kept my composure. "It's not about weight loss. Staying active helps with a smoother delivery," I explained. She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, if you want to be active, why not clean the stairs and mop the floors instead? That's exercise too, and at least it'll benefit the household." Her casual cruelty left me nauseated. Cleaning stairs while pregnant? She'd been through pregnancy herself. How could she say something so reckless? Refusing to let her stop me, I left the house and took the longest walk I could manage. I wandered aimlessly, unwilling to face the hostility waiting for me at home. By the time I returned, it was dark. As I walked through the door, Daniel was standing there, arms crossed, anger radiating off him. "Where the hell have you been, wandering around this late?" he barked. "I went for a walk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The weather was nice, and I felt good today." "A walk? More like an excuse to slack off," he snapped. "You neglected your responsibilities at home, didn't you?" "Excuse me," I said, my temper flaring. "I did the housework before I left, and I needed to get out for my health." Apparently, my mother-in-law had wasted no time spinning a story about how I'd abandoned the house to play. Daniel didn't even listen to me. "You don't act like a responsible wife," he continued. "Why can't you just follow what my mother says?" I couldn't hold back anymore. "Listen to me," I said sharply. "I am not this family's maid. We moved in with your parents for emergencies, not so I could be ordered around and treated like dirt." For once, my sudden defiance caught him off guard, and he didn't respond. From that point on, my in-laws toned down their comments, but their treatment of me as a pregnant woman didn't improve. Eventually, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. My husband and in-laws doted on the child, and their attitudes softened slightly, but I was done. I refused to let my in-laws hold him, no matter how much they complained. One day, Daniel lost his temper. "Hey, what's your problem? You're being arrogant," he yelled. "Know your place. You live under my parents' roof, do the bare minimum around the house, and now you won't even let them hold their grandson? You're treating me like a cash cow just so you can laze around as a stay-at-home wife." I froze, disbelief quickly turning into rage. A cash cow? From him, the man who earned less than I did when we both worked? My voice shook with anger. "A cash cow?" I shouted. "You couldn't even qualify as one. And do you know why I won't let your parents hold our child? It was because they made my life miserable before our son was born. I handled the housework, managed my own finances with my savings, and I didn't make things difficult for you," I said, my voice steady but firm. He shot back. "You are my wife, aren't you?" "So what if I'm your wife?" I retorted. "Even during my pregnancy, I did the chores and worked while you and your parents just complained. And let's not forget, I earned more than you did." His face turned red, his glare intensifying. "Enough. I'm kicking you out unless you apologize right now, in front of my parents. Say, 'I'm sorry, my lord.' I won't joke around anymore. Then maybe I'll forgive you," he demanded, his voice sharp. I felt a wave of disgust wash over me. Was he serious? I thought. How did I end up marrying someone like him? This was beyond a mistake. It was a level of failure that made me want to punch my past self. "Hey, are you listening?" he pressed, frustration mounting in his voice. "Apologize quickly. I'm serious about kicking you out." He wanted me to kneel and beg for forgiveness, all while reminding me, "A woman like you can't survive on her own anyway. Just come and do as I say." I had heard rumors about men becoming tyrants once their partner became pregnant, but I never imagined Daniel would be one of them. I couldn't forgive him anymore. All the anger I had been holding back exploded in that moment. Understood, I said, my voice eerily calm. I'll go pack my things. My response must have caught him off guard because he began to panic. As I turned to walk away, he tried to stop me. Wait a minute, are you serious about leaving? Daniel asked, clearly trying to talk me out of it. I am. What's the matter? Didn't you tell me to leave? I replied, my tone cold. He shook his head in disbelief. You're just putting on an act. It's impossible for you to raise the child alone while being unemployed. Do you really think you can be happy as a single mother? Come on. I said I'll forgive you if you apologize. So go ahead and apologize, he said, his voice laced with arrogance. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing, clutching my stomach. Was he really still demanding an apology? How far was he willing to push this entitled, king-like attitude? I looked at him with exhaustion. It's none of your business, I said, my voice cutting through the tension. Apologizing to someone like you would be a waste of time. It would be more productive to apologize to a random statue. Are you that dense? He yelled, his face flushing with rage. Who do you think you're talking to like that? I stared him down. I'm talking to the mama's boy husband standing right in front of me, the one who prioritizes his precious mama over his pregnant wife, I said, my words biting. Don't involve me in your issues, you piece of, he began, taking a step toward me, but suddenly stopped. He had noticed the small crowd of neighbors gathering around us. A voice from the crowd called out, "What's going on? Are you two fighting?" I raised an eyebrow and smirked. "What's the matter? Don't feel like hitting me now that the neighbors are watching?" Daniel's face went pale, and he hurried back inside the house, no longer willing to continue the confrontation. I quickly packed the bare essentials, grabbed my son, and left my in-laws' house. My mother-in-law followed me outside, her voice shrill. "Wait, are you really leaving? Do you think you can just do this?" I turned to her and gave her a formal goodbye. "Thank you for your hospitality, mother-in-law. I'm sure things will be tough for you with the neighborhood relations now, but I'm sure you'll manage," I said with a sly smile. "Wait, don't go," she shouted, but she quieted down when she noticed the eyes of the neighbors upon her. The crowd was enough to give me the confidence I needed to leave without further confrontation. I stayed at a friend's house for a while and rented an apartment using my inheritance from my parents. I immediately began divorce proceedings with the help of a lawyer, gathering all the evidence of the verbal abuse I had endured from my in-laws. The details of the years of mistreatment worked in my favor. "The more he tries to make excuses, the worse it gets for him," my lawyer said, his tone grim. "If this goes to court, how do you think he'll handle it?" The mere thought of court seemed to make Daniel nervous. He quickly agreed to the divorce, and I was able to secure child support for our son. 6 months later, I received a text from my ex-husband, though I couldn't bring myself to feel anything but disgust. "How are you doing? I feel lonely without the two people I loved," he wrote. The more I read it, the more repulsed I felt. I replied, "Of course I haven't forgiven you or your parents, and I never will. It's too late for that. Instead of wasting your time with messages like this, try paying your child support." That was the last I ever heard from him. Now, I've returned to work and my son is happily attending daycare. I'm financially stable, managing on my own without any issues. Interestingly, when we moved in together, it seemed like my father-in-law was trying to leech off my ex-husband and me. He retired early. Now, I'm sure my in-laws are living a miserable life, and I can't say I care. In fact, I want them to suffer for all the pain they put me through. "You'll never be happy as a single mother," my ex-husband had said to me once. Now, I can confidently say, I am happy. In fact, I'm far happier than I ever was when I was with them. It's just my son and me now, and our happiness couldn't be any better.